There we go. Thanks again for your patience. Okay. Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. My name is Darlene L. I am a recovered Al-Anon, and I will be leading this meeting this evening. We want to welcome everyone to our Al-Anon Big Book Recovery meeting. This is a step speaker meeting that meets every Wednesday night at 5:30 Pacific, which is 8:30 Eastern. We will study the 12 steps by using the precise instructions out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous as they relate to us as Al-Anons. Let's get our meeting started. One quick note, if you don't have a hard copy of the Big Book, you can access a PDF version for free online, just at aa.org/thebigbook, or just in your Google search type in PDF, Big Book AA PDF, and it should take you right to that. Okay, so this is the original AA preamble written by the AA Grapevine describing the fellowship in 1940. We study the preamble with an open mind and an open heart to consider how it applies to Al-Anon. This helps us to stay focused on the message of recovery the pioneers intended while observing the traditions in action. Through the actions taken based on the instructions of the basic text, we comprehend what the pioneers meant when they described the membership of AA, which is that they worked a program of recovery and they no longer drink. In our case, we no longer obsessed over the alcoholic. Through continuous action and study of these principles, the understanding of the value of the original preamble reveals itself. We ask for your humble consideration of our sincere admiration of the pioneers of Alcoholics Anonymous. The simple hope is that we of Al-Anon will grow into the same clarity and unity that birthed the original 12-step fellowship, because without them, after all, none of us would be here. The original AA preamble. We are gathered here because we are faced with the fact that we are powerless over alcohol and unable to do anything about it without the help of a power greater than ourselves. We feel that each person's religious views, if any, are his own affair. The simple purpose of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is to show what may be done to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves, regardless of what our individual conception of that power may be. In order to form a habit of depending upon and referring all we do to that power, we must at first apply ourselves with some diligence. By often repeating these acts, they become habitual and the help rendered becomes natural to us. We have come to know that as alcoholics, we suffer from a serious disease for which medicine has no cure. Our condition may be the result of an allergy, which makes us different from other people. It has never been permanently cured by any treatment with which we are familiar. The only relief we have to offer is absolute abstinence, the second meaning of AA. There are no dues or fees. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Each member squares his debt by helping others to recover. An Alcoholics Anonymous member is an alcoholic who, through the application of and adherence to the AA program, has forsworn the use of any and all alcoholic beverages in any form. The moment he takes so much as one drop of beer, wine, spirits, or any other liquid containing alcohol, he automatically loses all status as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is not interested in sobering up drunks who are not sincere in their desire to stay sober for all time. Not being reformers, we offer our experience only to those who want it. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and on which we can join in harmonious action. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our program. Those who do not recover are people who will not or simply cannot give themselves to this simple program. Now, you may like our program or you may not, but the simple fact remains that it works. And and we believe is our only chance to recover. There is a vast amount of fun included in the AA fellowship. Some people might be shocked at our seemingly worldliness and levity, but just underneath there lies a deadly earnestness and full realization that we must put first things first, and with each of us, the first thing is the solution to our alcoholic problem. To drink is to die. Faith must work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. In order to set the tone for this meeting, I ask that we bow our heads in a few moments of silent prayer and meditation, followed by the Serenity Prayer. Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a Big Book, it is time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, follow the directions in it, and learn what it means to be an AA. End of preamble. A sponsor is anyone who has had a psychic change as a result of working the steps and has the willingness to work with others. For those looking for a sponsor to guide them through the steps, please stay tuned and have your pens ready to record phone numbers immediately after the meeting. Each Al-Anon group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose, that of carrying the message to the Al-Anon who still suffers. This is our primary spiritual aim. Our job as a group is to provide people with a place to learn about and work the steps. It has been our experience that working the steps consistently provides us with a better, saner life. We consider all else to be an outside issue. This includes personal problems. The proper venue for sharing such problems is with a sponsor. This is, after all, where real recovery takes place, in working the steps with a sponsor. We are just so glad we are all here, and we are all here because we are not all there. There will be a period of fellowship after the meeting. If you have questions, if you need a sponsor, if you need to check in or get current, or if you want to discuss other literature, please stick around for the fellowship. That would be a better time for these subjects. Okay, we're going to get started on the steps that we're covering this evening, which we are in the 4th week already of February, if you can believe it. So tonight we're covering steps 10 through 12. And I'm going to briefly just recap the steps before, including the steps for last week, because I did get rushed through step 9. So I won't spend a lot of time. I'm just going to read the steps from the previous week and then just finish up a couple thoughts on step 9 before moving on. So let's see. The steps are on page 59 of the Big Book. So if you have one, if you don't have one and you can't get a PDF version, just feel free to listen. But I will mention here in case you want to listen back. So again, page 59 is where we have the steps. Steps are written in the AA Big Book. Step 1 is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3 made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4 made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5 admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. And step 9, made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So, again, just as a quick recap, and just a reminder that all of these meetings are recorded and on our YouTube channel, and I'll share the information at the end of the meeting. In case you have not heard or want a more in-depth study of the other steps before, 10, 11, and 12, you can go back and listen to those at any time. Step 7, again, is humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. So this is after we have completed our 4th step inventory and a 5th step with our sponsor, which is an in-depth talk about all of our past shortcomings, really, our defects in character, how we used to approach life as Al-Anons. And step 6 happens, when we're ready to have God remove all of these defects of character that we finally are able to see because we're willing, right? We're willing to go to any lengths for recovery from Al-Anon. As an Al-Anon, it's often a new perspective and something we've never tried before, and we've tried many, many things. So when we make it to step 7, that's when we actually, go through the process of praying and asking God to remove our shortcomings. Again, it's a very humbling time, very beautiful time. And, again, the key word is always willingness. So we have that spirit as we move forward into a new way of living. And that's when it's time for us to do a little bit more action and clean house, which is step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So in step 8, we use our 4th step, our inventory sheets that we had compiled before speaking to our sponsor, and we really review those thoroughly. And we have to come up with some lists of people who we need to apologize to for how we lived before. And again, it's a very humbling time. We have a sponsor that we work with as our guide. We spend a lot of time in prayer. We don't rush through these just for the sake of saying, check, I did it. We really take our time and, work through those and prayerfully consider what needs to be covered and to whom. And it may seem like a very overwhelming process, especially because we've never done something like that before, but it's necessary. And again, we have to have that willingness to go to any lengths to recover. So, step 8 is kind of the pre-work, coming up with the list, and then we move on to step 9, which is made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So we covered a lot in step 9 last week, but I did wanted to just touch base as a review before moving on to 10, 11, and 12. So, again, this is the actual action part where we have to go out and start making the amends, and we don't sit on them if we have no need. We learn, in the big book that it's important to make these in person if possible. So back, when this book was written, there was no such thing as like FaceTime or, maybe it was harder to travel, long distances. It's always better to do things in person. But you work closely with your sponsor and pray, and ask God for guidance on how and when, how quickly to get these done, and to whom, because as it says, and if it would to bring injury to the person, harm to the person who you're making amends to, or to others, that are involved, your family or their families, it might be best to just, have the willingness to make that amends, but to not actually make it. So that might seem a little confusing. We're not going to shrink out of fear. It's a very, very in-depth process where we pray and get that guidance and speak to our sponsor, who is, an unbiased fellow who's not part of the party, right? They're not going to they're going to be able to recognize, are we holding back because we're fearful, or is there something else here at play, and is it truly going to be more harmful than good to, apologize to someone for something? But again, willingness, I say this a lot, it really is the key. So if you were willing and you weren't shrinking in fear, as a, reason to not follow through, again, we just have that guidance and we go about them. Again, I think I mentioned we don't sit on it. So if it is something that needs to be done quickly, and thoroughly, we take care of it. And again, if we, for some reason, can't, we at least pray for the willingness to do so, and our sponsor guides us and, help us have the right timing together with our higher power. Let's see if there was anything at the very end last week where I had to finish up quickly. So, I think I was able to read the 9-step promises, but I'm going to just repeat those because they're very, very powerful. They're on page 84, and then we'll move on to step 10. So it reads, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom with a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And I just wanted to read that because, again, it's so powerful and it's so true. And as it says, if we are so thorough about this phase of our development, we truly are amazed before we're halfway through. Like, even after the first, few amends, even after the first one, truly, in my personal experience, I was a whole new person. I had never been taught how to properly make an amends. And it was just so beautiful, prior to program and we're coming to, learning the steps. And it was just, it said, baffling. Like and then there's this peace. It comes with the humility and being able to be humble, and to truly ask someone for forgiveness for something we have done to wrong them. And it mentions also, how fear disappears. Like, the first time can be a little nerve-wracking. Like, we've never done this before. That's natural as human beings if we've never done something, right? Like, what's it going to be like? What are they going to say? All these questions. But as I mentioned before, we don't shrink. We don't decide, oh, I can't do that. If we truly want to go to any lengths, it's very necessary. And after even the first time, we're at peace and we start to learn about freedom and experience that. And it's really, really tied in beautifully to the whole spiritual experience that comes with making the steps and completing the steps. So that leads us to 10, 11, and 12. We're going to start with step 10, which reads, continue to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Now, I think when I first came to a 12-step program, I had sort of heard that, steps 10, 11, and 12 were maintenance steps, quote unquote, how we work these daily for the rest of our lives in order to maintain sobriety, right? Like stay sober in our crazy Al-Anon thinking. And it was sometime after that I actually heard it put a different way. And it was not so much to maintain, but to strengthen and enlarge our spiritual life, right? Because, again, this is a spiritual program of action. This is not like a job or like a home. Like, we live in these bodies. We, we have these lives. So I can see where, we have our sobriety or a new way of thinking, right? A new way of living. So I can see where maintenance might be a semi-appropriate word, but it also just sounds very mechanical and to me anyway, and truly strengthening and enlarging our spiritual life is the goal because we weren't living on a spiritual basis before, right? I know I certainly was not, at least not in this area, as much as I claimed to know God and really felt like I was a spiritual person. You know, I grew up my whole life knowing of God or concept of God. And yeah, I wasn't able to turn my managing and controlling and obsessive thinking over my alcoholic loved one over to God. Like, that was one area of life where I just couldn't do it. So this program and living in 10, 11, and 12 after completing 1 through 9 has truly done that. It truly has given me the ability to strengthen and enlarge my spiritual life and my relationship with my higher power, with God. And so with step 10, it says, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admit it. So in step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, right? So that was what was necessary because it was something we had never done before. We address our past life with that. And I'm going to do some reading here. I found myself doing some explaining before reading last week. So let me read first, and then I'll elaborate some. So we're going to start on page 84. Let's take a moment to flip there. And this is in the chapter Into Action. So on page 84 there, it's the second to last full paragraph. It reads, this thought brought us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. And if we skip that next paragraph and go to page 85, the first full paragraph, it reads, it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our own laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. Okay, so let me elaborate a bit here. If we flip back to the paragraph on page 84, again, it says we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any mistakes as we go along. So again, when we did the inventory in step 4, that was dealing with our past, right? Everything that we had done up until the point where we decided what we were doing in our, with our Al-Anonism, essentially, right? Our obsessing, controlling, all the things that we had tried, all the therapies we had tried, everything, just life in general. Everything we had done up to that point that hadn't been working. We took inventory of all that from the past. And again, life doesn't stop, right? We're never cured of this mind, of this crazy thinking that we have, of this obsession to want to manage and control. So working the steps, 1 through 9 doesn't cure it. Even living in 10, 11, and 12 for a day or a week or a month or however long we might think, that doesn't cure us. There is no cure. Just as the alcoholic has no cure, we have no cure. It says it should continue for our lifetime. And so, every day we're living and life's happening, and our defects in character are going to continue to pop up because that's who we are. One, we're human, and two, we're Al-Anon. So again, these defects are not removed forever. They're going to continue to pop up. So daily we have to be in touch with what we're thinking, doing, saying, all the things. All of our defects that are at play have to be recognized, and promptly. It says when these crop up, we ask God to remove them at once. So it goes on to say we discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly. So the someone would be your recovered sponsor, who will take a 10-step, right? Whether we have to call if we're so caught up in our crazy thinking we can't even figure out like what's happening, what's at play, especially in the beginning when we're new and all of this is brand new to us. It can be really hard. I remember calling my sponsor multiple times a day, just like, I have this feeling and these thoughts and I can't, figure them out. And over time, thankfully, things become more clear and steps become just so much more natural, right? And it does mention in the next paragraph, if we rest on our own laurels, so if we decide to not promptly take care of business and send a 10-step, our minds as Al-Anons will just continue to spiral and our crazy thinking will continue. Again, it's daily, it's hourly sometimes, depending on our situation. We have heard some really strong promises that we really learn how to live in the stream of life, and it is true. The more we work this program, the more it works, the more natural things become, but it takes work to get there. And again, especially in the beginning, if you're new, we can't decide that our old way might work once again. We cannot rest on our own laurels. We truly have to do what it says and follow this, again, spiritual program of action. So yeah, what does a 10-step look like? It's anytime, my crazy thinking, whether it's related to the alcoholic, whether it's not, because we don't just live this way, we don't just treat our alcoholic loved ones this way. Before we come here and try this new way of living, it impacts everybody, innocent bystanders, our children who never asked to be born, all the things, our employers. We take this, attitude and feeling of superiority wherever we go. And so, maybe our alcoholic loved one isn't even in our life anymore. We still have this mind and we're still going to treat others harshly, whether we're fearful or just in a selfish moment or feeling resentment, or being dishonest, right, about a situation or whatever, it's going to creep in consistently. And so, again, we connect with God, we ask God to remove our defective character. If we're having trouble recognizing what that might be, a quick check-in with our sponsor to talk about the situation, kind of get some clarity around it. And then again, we ask God to help us. And the best way to be relieved and to, grow in that spiritual experience is to admit it, ask for it to be removed, and then to turn around and help someone. So it says back here, it says, and we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. So in the beginning, and often even in, as we continue on, our sponsor's going to say, go help someone. Unless we can, have said that we've done it already or that we're about to, we're going to be reminded that that's the solution. We have to turn around and instead of help me, I'm so, disadvantaged and poor me, right? My life is so miserable. Who can we help? Who needs help? Who else is having a bad day? Who needs, where can we be helpful? We change our way of thinking. We change our mind towards being helpful to someone else. And that's where we experience, freedom from our own seemingly such a big issue or what have you. So again, our defects are recognized, They're asked to be removed, and we turn around and be hopeful. That's step 10. So in that second paragraph I read over on page 85, it does say, we are not cured. I think I mentioned that before. We have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So there's that word again. And it's not to say that maintenance is a bad word. It's just, if you really kind of spin it the way I said before and think about it in strengthening, right? Getting closer to God, enlarging our spiritual life, being more helpful, we continue to stay free. We stay in our recovery. Stay as close to God as we can, be helpful, and that transcends into, freedom from our crazy thinking, at least temporarily, right, until the next time, and then we go and do it all over again. Okay. Yeah, as it says, these are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to step 11. I want to make sure I don't run out of time tonight. Okay, we're doing good. Step 11 reads, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Okay, so give me just one moment. I'm going to take a sip of water here. Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to be reading on page 85. These are the instructions for step 11. It reads, when we retire at night, and this is on page 86 here. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves, which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Okay, so here we spent all day. If we're doing what we're supposed to, we should have, lived in step 10, sent the 10 step, checked in with our sponsor, as our character defects have creeped in. So selfishness, resentment, dishonesty, or fear. Step 11 allows us a period of meditation, not just at night. We'll read about what we do in the morning as well here in a moment, but it gives us a chance to sit back and reflect. Did we miss something? Did I not check in with my sponsor over something? And again, like life can happen, right? We have to promptly work our steps. But if for some reason, maybe we were out of cell phone range, right? And by the time we got back in, there was just something else to deal with, and we never touched base. Those really should be very few and far in between instances if we're working our program correctly. Otherwise, in between that time and our period of meditation at night, we often can find ourselves, back in our crazy thinking and having these crazy thoughts and doing these crazy actions as a result. So we don't sit on these things, but, in these rare instances where either we couldn't connect or, maybe what's beautiful about the period of meditation at night is we can sit back and really think about our day. Was there something that I honestly, truly missed here? What happened between so-and-so? What was that conversation? What were those words I said? Maybe something felt a little off, but we sort of chose to ignore it and just, didn't quite pay attention to how that may have harmed somebody, the person we were talking to. And so, we ask ourselves these questions, because that's part of step 10 that I think I did not elaborate on. If we've harmed someone, we make that amends quickly, immediately. If there's as soon as possible is, again, in person. If there's not a way to connect in person, a quick phone call or, just right away. We have to take care of it. We have to keep our side of our street clean. And so that's, again, what we reflect on in step 11. We think about if we harmed someone, did we not get to that apology yet? And we let our sponsor know, I still owe an amends. And, we make it promptly. So as soon as we finish that, whether it's that evening or the next day, this review at night should be the very last thing we do upon retiring and, kind of at the very end of our day. And we might have something, business to take care of the next day and amends to someone that we did find that we have harmed. Let's see if there's anything else there. Yeah. So this nightly review is important. It's part of step 11. And the other part of step 11 we'll read now. It's also on page 86. This is the second full paragraph. It reads, on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. This is very powerful. So we have an opportunity and instructions, right, here in the book to set the tone for our day with God at the forefront, center of our thoughts. So this is when we wake up. We have a period of meditation with God, and we ask, we think about what our day is going to entail. Maybe we are going to have to come in contact with our alcoholic loved one. And, the old way of living would be to have a long list of things to complain about or gripe about or, give them a list of things to do or why haven't you done this? And again, we're not about that anymore. So we will think about, how are we going to approach life today? How are we going to set the tone? How can I be useful today? What would be useful thinking? It says here, we ask God, especially, that we be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, so again, we know what we're capable of. And we're going to ask God and pray about it, that we're not going to take that approach. What would be useful? What would you have me say, God? Is it wise that I'm meeting with this person if it's not necessary? All the things. We're going to have God direct everything. And as it says, under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. For after all, God gave us brains to use. So before, we were in charge. We thought we knew what was best, and we would just go with the flow, whatever came out of our brains. I know I did. Now I'm connecting with God, and it says here, we can trust God. He's the one that gave us the brain. If we're connecting with Him, we can trust that the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions and the guidance and the direction are not of our own thinking, that God has put them there, and that they're good. And we learn when we trust God, through working the steps, that when we are no longer in control and we, remember that we've turned that over, that things turn out a lot better. They always do, every time. That's how you know it's from God, right? We're relieved of the overwhelming emotion and desire to try to manage and control. That's just no longer our way of thinking, and we're at peace. We're at peace no matter the outcome. Let's see here. Yes, that last sentence. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. So again, God's our director. We decided that in the beginning. And just as I said before, we can trust and know that God is in control, and that it is God directing our thoughts when we're at peace with everything that comes along. So that's why we don't skip this. We don't skip any part of step 11, but especially in the morning, right? We set the tone for our day. We have to be in touch and ask God to guide us that day. That was something I personally had never done before. I had never done, I'd maybe ran through a few prayers here and there. Most of the time they were very selfish in nature, but an actual period of connecting and listening for God, right? Listening for my higher power, asking Him to direct my thoughts, asking Him to guide me was an incredibly new experience for me. A little, if I'm being honest, a little not uncomfortable, but definitely something I had to get used to doing. And if I wanted, I very easily could have slipped back into like resting on my own laurels and rushing through my morning and not giving myself that extra time that was needed to connect. And if I wanted to do that, I probably did. Well, I didn't. I maybe have. When we do, even now, the day doesn't go very well. We don't get to decide. We don't get to pick and choose which steps we're going to work. If we want that, we have to do it. We have to follow the instructions. And now it just comes naturally. And it's almost like I can immediately tell. I mean, life happens. And I don't know, maybe my kid's sick and wakes up early, a few minutes before me or, earlier than expected. And that type of thing happens. That's okay. As soon as I have a moment, my day usually isn't going very well. And I remember I skipped my morning meditation. I have to do that. I have to take 5 minutes if I have to and ask God. It doesn't have to take an hour of meditation, whatever we can, give and put into it. But it has to be intentional and it has to be something and it has to not be rushed. It has to be a daily practice. Otherwise, we just end up back into our old way of living. It's just part of it. Again, we cannot pick and choose which steps we work and which parts of each step we work. We have to be thorough. The last part here related to step 11 is on page 86, and it reads, hopefully I said page 86. It says, in thinking about our day, we face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here, we ask for God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We are often surprised at how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. Okay, so not only do we connect with God in, meditation and have a period of reflection in the morning, we do that in the evening. We also connect with God throughout the day. So, as it says, we might face an indecision. Life happens. Even if we plan our day or think we know what's happening, things always come up, right? Life plans always change. So if there's something that catches us off guard, we go to God first. Our old selves tried to handle it. Didn't work out so well. Our new way of thinking, again, is God is our director. So we check in. We have a period of meditation and ask God to help us. What's the right decision? He helps us determine which course to take. We can ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We don't struggle. That's the biggest point, right? We're not fearful. We're not full of anxiety. We take it easy. It's just like, okay, what would you have me do next? And the most amazing part I love, we are often surprised at how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. So it's almost very intuitive. We don't even have to cite it or think twice, because often, again, as we're getting used to this way of thinking, we're like, oh, is that really God? Is it me? We just know. And we just, again, that stream of life, we're just going with the flow. It's so beautiful. Okay. Page 87 and 88, I'm just going to read these quickly and then move on to step 12. So it says, we usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that can be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will, and we are careful to make no requests for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. And I alluded to that a moment ago when I said, there were times I would pray, and a lot of times my prayers were just selfish and very self-centered. So yes, as we pray, we're asking, how can we help others, not just our own selfish motives. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, or we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. That is so true. We used to be very tired because we were just living in self-will. It's exhausting. And it's amazing how we really are energized. We don't grow tired being hopeful. It's a newfound energy. That's something I experienced that was so amazing. I thought all of this, like having to be helpful towards others, was going to be exhausting. It's quite the opposite. I'm like re-energized. It's amazing how God works. I was so tired before living selfishly, and now that I'm hopeful, it's just, again, it's just different energy. It's the opposite effect. You're so energized, full of life, and who can I help? It's almost like, I don't know how to put it into words. It's just like the opposite of what we were experiencing before, as it says. We weren't burning up energy foolishly. It's almost like you have this miraculous energy that you never knew existed. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, on to step 12 here. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So on page 89 it reads, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. For us, obviously, to other Al-Anons. We can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. So this is very important. We have to remember that we get each other as Al-Anons, right? Before, when we tried to go to therapy, speak to a therapist about these problems, like, unless you have that same mind as someone else, it's not going to work, right? We learned about this, in the beginning with the doctor's opinion and how, the depth and weight of what someone is experiencing and the advice that's being given, it has to be firsthand. And we get that with Al-Anon, with our fellows and who are also Al-Anon. So that is why step 12 is so important. We have to find others who are suffering in the same capacity that we were, and we help them. Let's see. It reads, it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. So cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. So again, that ties into what I said before. We get each other. On page 90, it reads, when you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all that you can about him. If he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste your time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. This advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they are dealing with a sick person. So we have to remember how we were before, right? If we're not truly ready for this spiritual solution, we can't waste our time trying to be helpful and useful. And no offense to anyone who's new, don't be afraid. Like, we're going to have a chat. There's so many instructions here in the book about working our 12 steps. We're not going to ever be the determining factor for that. If you're ready, God's guided you here for a purpose. And at the right timing, we'll get through the steps and you'll be able to recover. If not, you have to trust that God's timing is working all the time. So we're not going anywhere anytime soon. This fellowship is around for many years, and you'll be brought back if it's God's will for you in God's timing. So again, as our 12 step, as we're working that, we have to remember we cannot force this program on anyone. Page, let's see here. I just have a few more minutes, so I'm going to skip ahead to, okay, page 96 says, do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Search out another alcoholic and try again. You are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. To spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. So yes, that ties in beautifully with what I read before. Don't take offense if, you approach a sponsor and we, point out that hey, get back to us when you're willing to go to any lengths. Like, we've been through the steps, we know what it takes. And if we don't see that in you, we're not going to force that on anyone. Again, it's all God's timing, and it's so beautiful when we do that. Like, it can't be forced. It has to be on His timing. That's what we have chosen to believe. And, when we decide to be here, and so we just have to be patient with God, and with our proteges, with those we're here to help. Let's see what else. Okay, on page 97, it says, never avoid these responsibilities, but be sure you are doing the right thing if you assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be. This is super important. So we don't avoid the responsibility of doing 12-step work, even if we're afraid that it's going to be overwhelming. As I said before, you have to remember, this is crucial. This is, as it says, the foundation stone of your recovery. I remember when I first got recovered, I was overwhelmed to even announce just like a sponsor and say, I'm willing, and my thinking, it was feelings. I didn't not do that because I knew I had to go to any lengths. I knew I had to do what my sponsor told me to do. It was just fear creeping in, right? Like, how much time is this going to take? What if I have to help more people than I have hours in the day? It was just all of that crazy thinking again, just trying to prevent me from being useful. And I was quickly reminded that that was my old way of thinking. Never once have I ever been overwhelmed when I followed directions, when I did the next right action, when I was obedient. It was always at the perfect timing that I needed, that a new protege came into my life. And it says a kindly act once in a while isn't enough, right? We have to do it every single day. We do 12-step work every single day, whether it's something more formal like leading this meeting or reaching out via text or phone call to someone, another fellow in need. We don't shrink at any opportunity, and it's all God guided. I will say that. So never be afraid. I'm getting now here down to the last minute or so. So I'm just going to see, I will finish with the 10, I can read the 10-step promises on page 84. So I'm just going to go back. This is really beautiful. It reads on page 84, we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. This is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. This is our experience. This is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Such a beautiful way to end. I think I'll just end on this thought here. It says, I remember when I first read this promise, when it says, it's given, our new attitude is given without any thought or effort on our part. I was very confused because I was like, but I thought this was a spiritual program of action. We have to do a lot. That's true. But if we want to get to this point where everything comes naturally, we work those steps, and then we're promised that this afterward. And I could not wait. I looked so forward to it, and I just did every next right action, everything my sponsor said, and God guided me to. And all of these promises have come to fruition. It's such a miracle. As it says, this is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So thank you for letting me share that. I know I'm a minute over here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our meeting. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to have been able to do 12-step work and to be your step speaker this month. So thank you. I do encourage everyone to listen weekly. Every step speaker will have, something new to share. And as I said, everything is God guided. So you're going to hear exactly what you need to as it's meant to be. So thank you again. Okay. Let me get back to closing. Seventh tradition, every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. This group does not have a payment structure in place and currently requires no overhead expenses. If you would like to fulfill Tradition 7, please direct contributions directly to the Al-Anon World Service Office by visiting al-anon.org. So it's al-anon.org. For questions about this meeting, or if you are looking for a sponsor, please send emails to Al-Anon Big Book Recovery at gmail.com. That's Al-Anon Big Book Recovery at gmail.com. Give me just one more second here. I'm going to take another sip of water. Okay, thank you. All that talking. Okay, let's see. The recordings can be accessed on YouTube by searching at Al-Anon Step Speaker in the YouTube search box. So again, you put at Al-Anon Step Speaker in the YouTube search box, and our YouTube channel with all the recordings of these meetings will pop up. If you are interested in other Al-Anon meetings that follow the Big Book, please visit www.alanonbigbooksolution.org. Once again, that's www.alanonbigbooksolution.org. Reading, okay, I'm going to read from the Big Book, page 164 here. It says, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day from a man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but you obviously cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Now let's have a moment of silence for the Al-Anon who still suffers, followed by the Lord's Prayer, or a prayer of your own choosing, said in silence. Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Give me just one moment.